Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here today to discuss potential biomes for your investment. My name is Panch Vangapandu, and the biome that I researched is the tropical rainforest. The tropical rainforest is a very dense, thick jungle, and there are many broad-leaved trees at the top which form almost like a roof, which is called the canopy. There are many diverse animals and vegetations. It has one of the oldest types of vegetations on Earth, and it is constantly, even as we are speaking right now, evolving and changing. Next slide, please. It is dominant mainly across the equator, where it is in three regions: the Malaysian Botanical Subkingdom, Western and Central Africa, and the Amazon Basin. Next slide, please. Here is a common food web that is found in this biome. There's the sun at the bottom, and we have three plants: the bamboo, orchids, and coconut trees. They're also known as producers. And then we have two herbivores, which are vegetarians, and which are also known as primary consumers. And they feed directly off of the plants. And they are the chimpanzee and the parrot. We also have two carnivores, meat eaters, which are also known as secondary consumers, and they are the jaguar and the python. We also have two different types of decomposers, which are fungi, and we have one detrivore, which is the earthworm. Decomposers, what they do is they physically break down the dead animal carcass down to its basic nutrients, while detrivores, on the other hand, they actually ingest and digest the animal carcass. Next slide, please. Here's a much simpler food chain that was taken from the food web in the previous slide. As you can see, the bamboo gets its energy from the sun. It does this through a process known as photosynthesis, in which plants, they're known as producers because they can produce their very own energy using only sunlight and carbon dioxide. And using that, they produce glucose and oxygen. And through cellular respiration, plants, they take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. And then the chimpanzee, it eats the bamboo to get its energy, and then later on, the jaguar eats the chimpanzee to get its energy. And then the decomposers, at the very end, they break down the animal down to its basic nutrients. Now, you must understand that the energy flow in an ecosystem, in any ecosystem, is very ineffective. Not 100% of the energy is cycled through. Suppose that the bamboo plant has 100% of the energy, and then when the chimpanzee eats it, it's only getting 10% of the energy. The other 90% is being lost as metabolic heat during their metabolism and activity. Next slide, please. In any ecosystem, there are many abiotic and biotic factors. Abiotic factors are non-living things that affect the biome. Biotic factors are plants, animals, and other organisms that affect the biome as well. In our ecosystem, abiotic factors include the sun, which is very important for plants, as I mentioned earlier, for photosynthesis. And since many of the rainforests happen to be positioned very near to the equator, rainforests tend to get a lot of sun, which is part of the reason for the very large trees in the rainforest. Rain is another very big factor. Typical rainforests get 100 inches of rain, which is also important for plants, because plants need water to survive. Rivers are also a very important water source for animals, since plants also need water to survive. There are many biotic factors, which I can go on and on about, but one of the prominent examples is the canopy. The trees, with their broad-leaved leaves, they form a roof over the rainforest, which is known as the canopy. The canopy, what it does is it blocks off most of the sunlight. If there's 100% of the sunlight hitting the rainforest at the top, only 5% of that sunlight is reaching the bottom. So that is not so good for the plants at the bottom. Now, what is the connection in between these two biotic and abiotic factors? They both work together to make the biome a very effective ecosystem. Next slide, please. Here is a diagram of how nutrients flow in any ecosystem. As I said earlier, plants get their energy from the sun. An animal, in this case the cow, eats the plant. Eventually, the animal will die off, and decomposers will break it down to its basic nutrients. The nutrients will then be put back into the soil. The soil will then be used by plants again. But what if something happened to the decomposers and they were just suddenly taken out of the nutrient cycle? It would make a huge impact on the ecosystem. Animal carcasses would decompose much slower, and less nutrients would go back into the soil. Next slide, please. I'd like you to refer back to our food web in the previous slide. I did keep in mind that this will be a tourist-oriented biome. And of course, animals are much more exciting to look at than plants. I mean, you don't go to the zoo to see plants grow. So, you might get the idea that plants are unnecessary and that we should take them out of the biome. However, if that happens, we will encounter a major problem if the plants are removed. The primary consumers, the chimpanzee and the parrot that depend on the producers for energy, will die off. And then the secondary consumers, such as the jaguar and then the python, they will die off as well. Decomposers will survive by recycling the nutrients into the soil, but it will be useless since there are no plants. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, one of the advantages is that there are many diverse plant lives. So, plant and animal lives. The rainforest has the largest diversity of organisms than any other biome. It is much more exciting than the desert or mountain biome. Next slide, please. However, there are its share of disadvantages. Due to the hot climate, 90 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, tropical rainforests, there are many tropical diseases such as malaria, dengue fever, and Chagas diseases. Malaria and Chagas are fatal, while dengue is very deadly. This project will require a lot of work and time, but with your investments, this project will be made possible.